Gaming has had some legendary consoles, your PlayStations, your Xboxes, your Nintendos, but for every great system there's a console that completely bombed. Some were plagued with bad hardware, others had zero support, and some were doomed from the start. I'm Matt, and today we're counting down the 10 worst video game consoles of all time. Some were ahead of their time but executed terribly, others were blatant cash grab, and a few are so obscure you might not have even heard of them. But which one is truly the worst? Stick around and find out. Nintendo. Yes, Nintendo is responsible for one of the worst gaming devices of all time. The Virtual Boy was supposed to be a revolutionary 3D gaming experience, but in reality it was an eye-straining, headache-inducing black and red disaster. The headset was uncomfortable, the graphics were awful, and it didn't even strap to your head. It had to sit on a table, making gameplay ridiculously awkward. Nintendo pulled the plug on it after less than a year, making it one of their biggest failures. For a company known for innovation, this was a rare example of being too ahead of its time, but in all the wrong ways, very much like peanut butter on a hot dog. The Nokia N-Gage was a phone trying to be a gaming console, or maybe a gaming console trying to be a phone. Whatever it was, it failed at both. You had to hold it sideways against your face to make calls, earning it the nickname Taco Phone, and swapping out games requires you to remove the battery. Imagine turning off your entire device just to change games. Hello honey, just a moment. I need to shut my phone and change the game. I'll call you right back. Nokia aimed for the mobile gaming future, but instead, it delivered an awkward hybrid that neither gamer nor phone users wanted. Apple once tried to make a console, and no, it did not go well. The Pippin, not from The Lord of the Rings, was Apple's attempt to enter the gaming market, but it was way ahead of its time in the worst way possible. It was basically a weak Macintosh computer that ran games badly. It had a $600 price tag in 1996, which was insane for the time, barely any games and almost no developer support. Less than 50,000 units were ever sold, making it one of Apple's biggest failures, which means that now I want one. For a company that prides itself on a sleek and functional hardware, this was one ugly misstep. The Atari Jaguar was marketed as the first 64-bit console, except it wasn't really. Atari's marketing pushed the idea that it was way ahead of its competition, but in reality, it was a mess. The controller? Horrendous. It had 12 unnecessary buttons that looked like a rejected TV remote or a freckled donut. The graphics barely better than the SNES, even though the PlayStation and N64 were right around the corner. And the worst part, it had almost no games. Atari promised the future, but it delivered the relic. The 3DO was an ambitious idea, a high-end gaming system that multiple companies could manufacture. Panasonic, Sanyo, and Goldstar all made their own versions of it, and in theory, it sounded like a cool concept. The problem, it cost $700 at launch. That's $1,500 in today's money. Yeah, no one was buying this thing. Add in a weak game library, the rise of the PlayStation, and confusing branding strategy, and the 3DO was dead on arrival, which is just like Concorde. What was meant to be a revolution turned into an overpriced paperweight. And let's stop for a second. If you like this video, please leave a like, share the video, leave a comment, subscribe to any of these. It will help the channel a lot. And that's it. Let's continue with the list. Here's a handheld console that barely existed. The Gizmondo, which by the way I really like the name, was supposed to be the next big things in portable gaming, but what we got was a crime-ridden disaster. No, literally, the company behind it was run by criminals. One of the executives was caught in Swedish mafia scandal, and another guy crashed a Ferrari Enzo at 162 miles per hour while running from the law. As for the console itself, it had about 8 games total, and one version of it forced players to watch ads to subsidize the cost. It was a scam from the start and completely tanked. Metal, of all companies, tried to make a game console. The HyperScan was a weird attempt at mixing card games with video games, where you had to scan RFID cards to play. It sounded cool until you realized that scanning cards took forever. And the console itself was underpowered. It looked like a cheap plug-and-play toy. It had only 5 games, all of which were bad, and it was discontinued in a gaming system where playing a game felt like work. No wonder it failed. Maybe they should have invested in a different plug-and-play toy instead. Oh boy, the Ouya. Or is it Ouya? Or Ouya? Or Hoya? No one really knows. This was one of the first major Kickstarter disasters in gaming. The idea? A $99 open source console where anyone could develop games. In reality, it was just a glorified Android box that ran mobile games you could already play on your phone. The store was filled with shovelware, no major developer supported it, and the tiny controller felt awful to use. It lasted barely 2 years before being completely abandoned. The CDI is responsible for some of the worst video games of all time. Ever heard of those awful Zelda games with the cursed animation? Yep. That was the CDI. It was a multimedia console that nobody wanted, and its attempt at gaming was just tragic. The games were slow, ugly, and barely playable. It's so bad that even Nintendo pretends it doesn't exist. But not us. How else can we make fun of it? So why is it ranked lower than number 1? Because despite its failing, it at least had an ambition. And the worst console ever? The R-Zone. This thing made the Virtual Boy looks like a PS5. Tiger Electronics tried to make a wearable console where you projected the game onto one eye like a futuristic heads-up display. Except it was just a horrible LCD screen strapped to your face. It had a terrible library of games, no backlight so you couldn't even see it properly, and it physically hurt to use. At least the Virtual Boy tried. The R-Zone? It never had a chance. And that's our list. Did we miss a console so bad it deserves a dishonorable mention? Let us know in the comment. Thanks for watching, a like and subscription will be appreciated, and we'll see you in the next video. And don't forget, enjoy your games.